Hi everyone, this is CricketSong with Lunar Wisdom, and you're watching episode 1 of Practical Witchcraft. So, episode 1, we're going to be covering warding and shielding. And what this series of videos is going to do is going to take you through my personal practice of witchcraft, a practical approach to making magic, and how I, CricketSong, practice my witchcraft over, I think we have 36 weeks, 36 videos. Each video is going to be covering a topic. So this week we're looking at warding and shielding, and I'm going to be walking you through how I do that in a magical sense. Some of the things I may not be showing you exactly what I do and may just be an example of what I might do, and some of them may actually have been the things that I have done. So let's get to it. Warding and shielding. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to craft an incense to burn while I do my magic, while I cast my spell. And what I do for warding and shielding is I am going to create wards. I have a gargoyle I use all the time, and I have other wards that I'm going to craft. And when I imbue the wards or the items with the spiritual energy, with the actual ward, I want incense to burn during that magical spell casting. So I start, and this is only the beginning, I start by looking at Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs, or any other book that will give me the correspondences with the herbs, whether they're magical correspondences or medicinal correspondences. I feel like there is a correlation between the two. So this is where I start. I have a drawer full of herbs, and I kind of have an idea of what I have in that drawer. So I will consider that while I look through here. So the first thing I do is I turn to the back of the book, where you can find his sort of like listing. And while I'm considering warding and shielding, their protection. And so I'm going to look, these are in alphabetical order. Here we have protection, to gain protection. So that's what I want to do. I want to gain protection. So I look through this list, and I consider if I have any of these already on hand, because I'm not going to go buy more herbs if I have herbs that I can use, unless it's something I'm really excited to use or I'm really called to use. But generally my herbal drawer has herbs that can be used for multiple things, and they're herbs I tend to like to work with, or I like the smell of it, or whatever it is. So in my head, I'm already thinking I'd like to use rosemary. I believe I have some rosemary in my drawer, and maybe mugwort, or mullein, or wormwood. I know those are 3 I have, and I happen to like to use them. So I just go down this list to see. Cedar is another one I could use. So what I generally do is I jot down some of the herbs that Cunningham suggests for the correspondences or the associations, and then I'll think about that and meditate and contemplate. So I'm going to write cedar, because cedar would be one that if I have, I might use that. And because I've already thought I'd like to use mugwort, wormwood, I'm going to look here just to see if they're listed. Oh, he does have mullein listed. He does have mugwort listed. Wormwood is also listed here. The valerian is here. Oh, and vervain. I may have some of those. So I'm going to jot down, I like vervain for this. I may use vervain, mugwort, mullein, wormwood are ones I had already thought of using. Mimosa, I think I have some mimosa. Mimosa is listed. I think I may have some of that. Myrrh. Rattlesnake root. Rosemary is here. St. John's wort. So rosemary, St. John's wort. Okay, I think these are ones I actually have. Sandalwood would be great if I have some. I don't think I have any, so I don't think I'd be using that, but I wish I had some. That might be one I would use if I had it. Oh, and I said valerian. That's the stinky one. Okay, so I have a list. I'm just going to then switch and just check. Just because it's on that list, I kind of go in here and just double check exactly why. So I would look at cedar. I already know cedar is used for purification. Protection is the last on the list. I've used it for purification and for anointing oils to purify something. So cedar, I'm going to cross that off. It's the last on the list, and it's not necessarily one that I would really be psyched about. So let's look at mugwort. I like mugwort, mullein in them, so I'm going to look at them just to, oh, and mimosa, since mimosa was one I had considered. Again, mimosa is the first thing it's listed for here, involving purification, healing, prophetic dreams, fusion, destroys hexes, curses, guards against future problems. So I don't think I wrote it here, but I'm gonna write it here because I'm almost sure I have some mimosa. And I'm gonna put a little star because that one would be really good to use for protection. So let's look at the other ones that I had considered. I considered mullein, mugwort. This is in alphabetical order, so I'm just going to look at mugwort. Strength, psychic powers, protection, prophetic dreams. I know mugwort's used for protection. I really like mugwort, so I'm going, and I know I have a good amount of it, so I'm going to star that one because I definitely want to use mugwort. Mullein, courage, protection. Yeah, I have a lot of mullein, so I'm going to star that as well. I like mullein. So let's look at rosemary. And I do this every time I create a incense. So this is my standard way of crafting an incense. Rosemary, protection is the first thing. So if I have some rosemary, that's going to be one I'm going to use. St. John's wort, I know I have some of that. I don't use it often. It was given to me by someone. Actually, I think it's under SA for saint. I really wish I had some sandalwood. Health and protection. I've used St. John's wort for health, not necessary protection, but it is the second thing in line. I'm not so fond of it. Like I said, if I was doing a health thing, a health spell or a tea or something, I would use it. So I'm going to cross that off because I'm not so geeked about using St. John's wort. Sandalwood, if I had sandalwood, it's going to be red. Oh, they're saying that for love. If I had sandalwood, if I had white sandalwood, protection is the first thing. I don't know if I have it. I'm going to put a question mark. I need to check my drawer. So if I have it, I might actually use it because I love the smell of sandalwood. Let's look under V for valerian and vervain. Okay, they're both on this page here. Valerian, love, sleep, purification, protection is the last one. So we're going to scratch off valerian. And vervain, Love, protection is the second list. I don't know if you can see. Protection, yeah, you can't really. Well, protection is the second thing on this list. It's common in love mixtures, peace bringer, calm and emotions, money, prosperity. I'm not so geeked about it, so I'm going to cross it off because I have a whole list. And the last one I want to check is wormwood. I really like wormwood, but I generally use it for like psychic things and contacting, you know, the spirits. Psychic powers, protection is the second thing. So psychic powers and protection, calling in spirits. I'm going to be warding. I'm going to be, I'm probably going to use wormwood. So after I have my list like this, I go over to my drawer, my herbal drawer in my altar. So let's go over there and take a look and do an inventory and see what I have and see what I don't have and decide what I'm going to use to craft this incense. So now I'm over here at my altar and I'm going to go to my herb drawer, which is the second drawer here. And this is where I have all my jars of herbs, and I'm going to check my list and see what I have. So let's take a look. So we're looking, I'm curious to know, well, there's an empty bottle. I'm curious to know if I have, oh, there's another empty bottle. If I have, oh, I had cedar, but I crossed it off the list. Frankincense and myrrh, mandrake. This is Palo Santo. That's patchouli, that's rose. St. John's wort, but I crossed that off the list. Chamomile, catnip. I think this is dragon's blood. It is. I can see dragon's blood. Copal, dittany. Don't want any of that. Spearmint. Birch twigs. Rosemary. Whole bunch of rosemary. So we're going to take that. We're going to use some rosemary. Mugwort. Did I say I wanted to use mugwort? Yes. So I'm going to use the mugwort. Wormwood. We did say yes to wormwood. Lavender. Nope. Vervain. We crossed that off. Mullein. We're going to use mullein. And that's it, because that's chamomile. So I guess I don't have any mimosa. I thought I had some. I don't have any mimosa. Shit. Okay. So I guess we're not going to use the mimosa. So we're going to use the mugwort, the wormwood, the rosemary, and the mullein. And I don't have any sandalwood either. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use these four and we're going to craft an incense. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to light my candles. I will walk you through this. I'm going to light my candles for the primordial masculine and feminine energies. I'm going to light my white altar working candle, and then we are going to craft the incense. So let's do that now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bowl, and this is what I'm going to be crafting my incense in. I would do it in my cauldron, only my cauldron is pretty, I usually burn stuff like the incense in the cauldron. So I'm not going to craft it in the cauldron. So I'm going to remove the cauldron for now because I'm just crafting an incense. I'm going to put it on the floor. I'm going to put my pentacle back in the center. And I'm going to put the bowl that I'm crafting the incense on the pentacle. So this sort of acts like a cauldron. I could actually use this smaller bowl that sort of looks like a cauldron. But I'm not making that much incense. I could have used a smaller bowl, but I'm going to I'm not making a whole bunch of incense. I'm just making enough for this specific spell crafting. And I'm going to store it in one of those empty I'm going to store it in here when I'm done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these feathers out of the way. And this feather and this feather, I'm going to move them out of the way so I can put my ingredients on my altar here. Oops, I have another feather. I'm going to leave this one particular feather on the altar. Put it over by the skull. But the rest of them I am going to put in my drawer for now, and I'll take it out when I'm done. Okay. I'm going to light my candles. This candle goes here. I'm going to light my candles. Now, as I stand here, and I'm going to take a few moments to align myself, ground myself. And it may take longer. I'm not going to stretch that out because it might take a while. So I'm not going to do it for the purpose of this video, but it would take a little more longer. But I'm going to get myself into a sort of receptive mind. I may meditate a little bit prior to actually doing this. But in my mind, I'm going to be aligning myself with my ancestors, with my beloved dead, with the spirit realm. And then I'm going to light my candles. The red one is for the primordial feminine that I work with, or the goddess. And the black one for the primordial masculine that I work with, or the god. And then the white one for my working, or blood, flesh, and bone. So as I take each of the herbs that I'm going to mix in my bowl, I'm going to, so let's start with the mugwort. So I'm going to take a handful of mugwort, and I'm going to close my eyes, visualize my intention. I'm already connected to my spirits, spirit realm, the ancestors, beloved dead, any deities that I'm working with, any spirit allies, spirit guides. And just ensure that this is the herb that I should be adding to this. It's the herb that I want. It's the herb that aligns and resonates with my intention of warding and protection. Waiting for an affirmation that this is, or a validation that this is what I should be working with. If I get it the yes, then I add it to the bowl. If I get a no, I put it back into the container. And again, for the purpose of this video, I'm not going to be standing here and actually doing this, because this could take time. I'm feeling as if this is a yes, so I'm going to add that. So that was the mugwort. And I do the same for the wormwood. Take a handful. I get validation and I add it. Do the same for the rosemary. Validation. Rosemary and I have a great relationship. There's some special associations that I have with rosemary that may not be used with others for other people. So usually when rosemary comes up, if I feel inclined to work with it, it's usually an affirmation that I should. Affirmation. And then when I'm done with adding them, I mix them. And it's during this, I generally use 2 hands. Sometimes I chant. Oftentimes I'm just quietly mixing. Sometimes I hum. I feel the energies of the herbs as they're mixing. I feel the physical sensation of them in my fingers. And I'm sending, at this point, I'm just communing with the herbs. I'm sending forth my intention of protection and warding. I'm asking my beloved dead, the ancestors, the mighty ones, to come forth and aid me with this magical working, this crafting of this incense for the intention of warding and protection and shielding those I love who live in this home, aiding me with bringing forth and manifesting that which I desire. So mote it be. And I bang the bowl, or I do some sort of physical action like that to seal my intention into the whatever it is I'm doing. So I'm not sure. And then the incense is mixed, and I usually leave it here on my altar. I don't have a specific amount of time that I'll leave it here, but I leave it here until I feel that it has been charged and imbued with the intention that I ask. I give it time for my ancestors, for my beloved dead who are represented here on my altar. These are my beloved dead that I work with, my specific bloodline that I work with. Well, one of them is not bloodline, one of them is spiritual connection, but the others are, and some of them are marriage connection. There's 2 that are marriage connection, but specifically my paternal grandparents and my maternal grandparents, and then the collective witch ancestors and the primordial god and goddess, or masculine and feminine, that I work with. I keep it here on the pentacle to allow them to work with me. And if there is any indication at the end of the time that this incense should not be used, then I will start fresh. If there is no indication that I should not, then I will go forward with working with them, with this specific incense. And as I'm standing here and I'm talking with you about this, I am being directed, or feel drawn to, or however you want to word this, to take this stone, and it's an actual stone, and to place it in the middle. And also I feel directed to take a set of bones and place it on top as well. And now I'm going to leave it here, and when I will tell you, I'm not sure how long it would be, but I will leave it here, and then I will come back when it is ready, and we will continue with what I do next. Now, I may craft this incense a day before, a week before. I may be told to do it on a dark moon, on a full moon. This incense is being crafted during a new moon. The dark moon was on Saturday. This is a Monday. So it is being done on a new moon on Monday. It is during the day. It is being done. I would prefer to do it at night. However, the lighting in this house does not aid for that, so you wouldn't be able to see what I'm actually doing. But this is how I generally do and craft the incense. So any spell crafting that you watch in preceding videos, if I do not show the craft of the incense, this is how I do that. Okay, so let's see what happens next. So I'm back at the altar, and the incense is done. It's been approved, it's been imbued, it's been this is what I'm using. So I'm going to take this jar and I'm going to use it to store the incense in case I don't use it all for this particular warding and shielding that I'm doing. I need to get myself a spoon, but for now I'm using my hands, and I'm just going to store the incense in this jar for the warding and shielding that I'm doing. And then we'll go forward. Okay, I'm going to wash this bowl later. And this is the incense. This jar has been physically washed, and then it was cleansed. Okay, it was not consecrated. It was physically washed and cleansed because it was going to, I knew it was going to house either an oil or an incense. And actually, this is the perfect size for this incense. A handful of each. Okay, so incense is done. Now the next step is to actually imbue the wards and to prepare the vessels for this two specific wards that I have, that they house specific spiritual entities that ward the house here and that warded our house when we lived in Massachusetts. And then I have fetishes, and I have a witch's ball and some other items that I use to keep the shield or to keep the protection in place in the house. I am not gonna, I'll just talk about it as I go along. Okay, now understand that all this has already been done, and this is basically showing a demonstration of what I did, although I'm not going to go through it, the actual ritualistic spell casting, because it's already been done. So I'm showing you what I did, I guess, but not specifically. So I'm going to replace my cauldron on the altar. And the first thing I'm going to do is put in a charcoal disc and start the incense. So, get a disc out. Hold on, I got all this stuff over here. Okay, I'm going to light that and allow that to catch. Now, this would be the time that I would suggest you cast circle if you're going to cast circle. I am not casting circle. I do not always cast circle any longer in my practice. I used to. Things have changed. My practice has shifted. I will not be casting circle. There is benefits in casting circle. I have videos that you can go check out in regards to casting circle, but I will not be casting circle. At this point, if my candles were not lit already, again, I would call the forces of the primordial feminine, I would call the forces of the primordial masculine, and I would call forth the primordial forces of the spiritual realm. Blood, flesh, bone, masculine, feminine, spirit, and I would call them forth. This would include my beloved dead. This would include the mighty ones. This would include spirit guides and anybody else I work with in the spiritual realm. Check to see that the incense charcoal disc is lit. Add some of the incense. Take time to commune. Pull myself into a meditative state, however long that takes. For this video, I'm not going to sit here and do that. And then I'm going to do my work. So the first two things I'm going to share with you are vessels that house spiritual entities. The first one is my gargoyle. This gargoyle I've cleansed when I first received it. I cleansed it with the elements, meaning I cleansed it with the energy of fire, the energy of earth, the energy of air, and the energy of water. After I cleansed it, I then consecrated it as a vessel for this specific spiritual entity that will ward the home. This spiritual entity has a name. I am not going to share that with you, but it has a name. I communed with that spiritual entity, and then we made a deal, or we made an agreement that we would be working together, and it would act as ward of this home. So what I would do then is, after this gargoyle was cleansed and consecrated, I would then place it here on my pentacle and invite or summon, however you perceive it in your practice, the spiritual entity to this vessel, to this particular statue, to act as its home. Once I did that, this then takes place where it's going to stay, and I would be sure to feed this vessel however often it needs to be fed, to be sure that the spiritual entity is pleased and comfortable and everything, the relationship is still working according to what was originally agreed upon. So that is this vessel. The next vessel is this doll. This doll is the witch's doll. Again, this doll was cleansed, consecrated, and it has a name. Actually, the doll doesn't have a name. The spiritual entity that is housed in this doll has a name. And this spiritual entity works well with the gargoyle. These two, I will show you where they go in the home. They guard the home. They ward the home. I did the same thing as I did with this, as I did with the gargoyle. So these are 2 vessels that ward the home. The other items that I have are fetishes, or they are crafted, or, for example, let me show you before I go any further. I have 2 sets of bells. Bells themselves scare off negative entities or scare off negative vibrations. So these were cleansed and consecrated for the purpose of protection. They don't house a spiritual entity. They're just placed to, protect. They're used for protection or shielding. So they were, again, cleansed and consecrated in however you do within your practice. I use the elements, as I've said, and I prepared them as such. The other item that is kept within the home is my witch's ball. It is just the glass ball. This was cleansed and consecrated. Every so often I cleanse it again just to release the trapped energies. If there's any energies trapped and not transmuted, I would never reconsecrate it, but I have cleansed it on occasion. When we got here, I cleansed it because I wanted to make sure it was all clear from the previous home. That I will show you where that hangs in the house as well. That's indoors. The bells, the 2 vessels are outdoors. The other item, just the nature of what it is my besom. This besom is kept on the back door. I will show you, and as the front door. And as the nature of the besom, it is a protection. This besom is my besom and was used when my husband and I were hand fasted. We jumped that particular besom. This pentacle, just the nature of the symbol of what it is. It was cleansed and consecrated when I first received it. This stays on the outside of the door, again as a protection, just the nature of it. And this kitty cat, also, it's not a vessel. It does not hold a spiritual entity, but is sort of associated with our previous cat. And he sits on top of the front door as an added protection. Superstition says a black cat is bad luck. I perceive this as good luck and as a protection. As of yet, it does not house the spiritual entity of our previous cat, my previous familiar. We'll see how that goes. This may eventually become a vessel. It is not a vessel as of yet. Again, cleansed and consecrated as just protection. Now, the last things that I crafted recently as protection for our home are these fetishes. I collected these sticks from the neighborhood, and I bought the, I forget what this particular twine is called, jute, I believe is what it's called, and I crafted these around Samhain. Now these I'm using as, again, fetishes. They're fetishes, but the energy is used for protection. And the idea was the energy of the ancestors and beloved dead. They are not vessels, but they are just aligned with the protection, and I hang these outside of the home. They stay outside to ward off any negative energies or entities that may choose to invade our home. Once all these things are cleansed or consecrated, though that I would do in a different ritual. In this specific ritual, I would be, this incense, I would be using to, as I said, to prepare my vessels for the wards. I may use this incense as I'm consecrating and cleansing the items that would be used for shielding and protection. When this is all done, all these items would be, depending on which ones I'm doing at one time, I may not do all this in one sitting. I may split it up and do it over time. As I, purchased the witch's ball, as I got the besom, none of these things were done all at once. These things were done as I obtained each item, as I crafted the fetishes, as I prepared my vessel. I would use the same incense, and I would light in the same way. When I am completed everything, after everything has been charged on the altar, when I know that they are complete, when the ancestors, my beloved dead, the spirits, have said everything is done, the work is finished, I would then extinguish the candles, I would let the last of the incense burn, and then I would go put the items away, or place them where they're meant to be. I make sure that I do offerings on a regular basis to my ancestors, so it's not necessary for me to do it at this particular working, because I have a working relationship with the ancestor, the beloved dead, and my spirits that I work with. So at this point, I will show you where each of the items are kept. All right, so the first few things, this is our front door. On the back of the front door to our home, we have the besom, the cat, and the witch's ball. That is on the front door of our home, only a few feet away from the altar. So that's where the first few things are kept. So the other items, most of the other items are out here in the front. So on the front of the door, we have the pentacle. We have the gargoyle right at the front door. We have the doll, the witch doll. So those two being the vessels for wards for the home. The other thing is acting as shielding. We have one of the fetishes here. We have another fetish here. We have bells here. And the other bells are in front of that window there. And that is a bedroom, my son's bedroom. This is the front entryway, and that is my bedroom with my husband. That is the living room. Now I don't have anything in the window of the living room, only because that door walks into the living room and my altar is right on the other side of that. So there's already a lot of protection in that window. Now in the back of the home, I will show you, I have a couple of items. I have one of these fetishes and I have a wind chime. But I will show you that next. Fetish we will go through. It's in the back here in the backyard. Through the slider. This is the back entry to the home, and there's the fetish there. So this is the backyard. So the back entry is covered by that fetish, and then we have a wind chime, which the nature of it will keep away any negative entities. And the reason why I'm not so worried about this backyard, any negative energies or entities coming, is because the whole yard is enclosed with a fence, and I have energetically strengthened the fence to keep away any negative entities. And we have natural trees working with the energies of the land. The trees act as a natural protection for us. So having the main fetish here with the wind chime there, I don't feel as if we are too threatened. If anything, people walking by the front of the house, I feel as if that would be more necessary. And the only bedroom in the back of the house is that window there. Which, you know, now that I think of it, I might want to put some sort of something there. So that's it. That's the end of this video on shielding and warding. Blessed be.